Area 51. You know, just saying the name makes you think of shadowy government secrets, crashed flying saucers, maybe even alien autopsies. For decades, it's been the absolute epicenter of UFO folklore. But what if I told you the declassified truth is a story that's arguably even more extraordinary?
So that's the big question, isn't it? If it wasn't aliens, what was so important that it had to be hidden away in one of the most remote places on the entire planet? What was really going on out there that captivated the whole world?
Well, to really get Area 51, you have to look at two totally different stories that run side by side. On one hand, you've got the myth we all know, the crashed ships from Roswell, captured ETs, and technology from another world. But on the other hand, we have the declassified reality, a story about mind-blowing spy planes, supersonic jets, and the birth of stealth. And that is the story we're going to dive into today.
See, the real story of Area 51 doesn't start with a bang from another planet. Nope, it starts right here on Earth, born out of the intense paranoia and the high-stakes game of espionage that was the Cold War. To get why Area 51 even exists, you got to go back to the years right after World War II. The Iron Curtain had slammed down, creating this huge intelligence blackout. The U.S. was absolutely terrified of a surprise Soviet attack, a nuclear Pearl Harbor. This fear pushed President Eisenhower to approve the top-secret U-2 spy plane program in 1954. The problem was, a plane that could fly higher than anything else needed a test site that was completely, and I mean completely, off the map. And by 1955, they found their spot. The location they picked was a remote, dry salt flat in Nevada called Groom Lake. The lead designer of the U-2, the legendary Kelly Johnson, he knew right away it was the one. This huge, flat lake bed was a perfect natural runway. He said it was as smooth as a billiard table, and the mountains all around it would shield it from any prying eyes. Okay, but how in the world do you convince the best engineers and pilots to move their families to the absolute middle of nowhere? Well, Kelly Johnson came up with a pretty clever bit of marketing. He gave this desolate, dusty spot a much more appealing name, Paradise Ranch. Yeah, a little branding magic for one of the most secretive and harsh workplaces on Earth. So, if Paradise Ranch wasn't home to little green men, who were these mysterious visitors people started seeing in the sky? The answer lies in the incredible, almost unbelievable aircraft being tested there. The very first star of the show was the U-2 spy plane, built under something called Project Aquatone. Now, this was no ordinary plane. It could fly at over 60,000 feet. Just think about that for a second. Back in the 1950s, commercial jets topped out around 30,000 feet. Most people thought manned flight at that altitude was basically impossible. The U-2 was literally flying at the edge of space.
But the U-2 was just the warm-up act. Next came Project Oxcart, which gave us the A-12, the forerunner to the famous SR-71 Blackbird. This thing was an engineering marvel. Its body was made of 93% titanium, and get this, the CIA had to secretly buy most of that titanium from the Soviet Union, the very country they were building this thing to spy on. You cannot make this stuff up. The irony is just off the charts.
And the speed? The A-12 could tear across the sky at over 2,000 miles per hour. That is faster than a rifle bullet. An object screaming through the atmosphere at that speed would have looked completely, utterly alien to anyone who was lucky or unlucky enough to see it. And Area 51 was just this hub for all kinds of strange and amazing flying machines. They developed Have Blue, this bizarrely shaped prototype that became the F-117 stealth fighter. They secretly flew captured Soviet MiGs to figure out their weaknesses, and they built experimental planes like Tacit Blue, which honestly look more like a flying whale than a spy plane. So, okay, we have these impossibly high-flying, impossibly fast, and just plain weird-looking aircraft being tested in total secrecy. And this, right here, is the crucial point. This is how these top-secret projects accidentally created the biggest UFO conspiracy in history. I want you to imagine something. You're an airline pilot in the 1950s, flying along at dusk. You look out your window, and way up high you see this fiery object just hanging there, miles above you. What you were really seeing, it was the silver wings of a U-2 reflecting the setting sun from an altitude you didn't even know was possible for a plane to reach. And look, this wasn't just a one-off thing. According to the CIA's own declassified reports, more than half, yeah, you heard me, over half of all UFO sightings in the late 50s and 60s were in fact these secret U-2 and A-12 flights. And then there was the A-12, the Oxcart.
One of the Area 51 veterans described its shape as a wide, disc-like fuselage. So when pilots looked up and saw the bottom of that disc zipping past them faster than a bullet and reflecting the sun, what other conclusion could you possibly come to? It had to be a flying saucer.
So you really had the perfect storm for a misidentification. You've got extreme altitude, flying way above anything else. You've got unreal speed, moving faster than anything people had ever seen. You've got these bizarre, unusual shapes, discs, and weird angles. And you've got these fiery reflections off the titanium. These weren't extraterrestrial craft. They were just the absolute peak of human engineering, so advanced they were mistaken for something not of this world.
And here's the real kicker. The government, in trying to protect these secrets, actually helped build the myth. They couldn't just come out and say, "Oh, that's just our top-secret spy plane." No way. Instead, they gave these vague, deceptive explanations, like, "Oh, it was a weather balloon." To the public, that just screamed cover-up. It made people even more certain they were hiding something huge.
So, for decades, this myth just grew and grew in this vacuum of information. But, eventually the Cold War ended, and slowly the truth began to trickle out. Check out this timeline. In 1989, a guy named Bob Lazar causes a media firestorm claiming he worked on alien tech there. It took the Air Force almost another decade, until 1998, to even vaguely acknowledge the base. But it wasn't until 2013, that the CIA finally, officially, declassified the history of the U-2 and Oxcart programs and confirmed the name we all know, Area 51.
So, why does all this matter today? Well, because the base is still very much operational. While its original secrets are now public, experts are pretty sure that Area 51 is still right at the cutting edge of military innovation, probably developing the next generation of drones, advanced weapons, and future stealth tech. The mission to push the boundaries of what's possible, it never really stopped.
So in the end, no, there were no little green men at Area 51. But the reality of what was there, of engineers and pilots creating aircraft that could fly to the edge of space and outrun a missile, all in total secrecy, that leaves us with one final thought. The secret wasn't extraterrestrial, but was the truth any less extraordinary?